What's up, everybody? It is Jay here, and today we are going to be talking about what age people should be able to transition at. Now, by this, I don't just mean like in general when you can begin to transition and what you can do, because obviously transitioning is different for everyone, and what transitioning involves for you will differ from what it involves for me or what it involves for some other trans person. So I'm going to be talking about specific different parts of transitioning because as a whole, like there are limitations put upon people when it comes to transitioning. And the reason I'm talking about this is because I saw an article on The Guardian about Gendered Intelligence, which is an organisation in the UK that ran some summer camps for transgender young people. And there was a commenter on it who very ignorantly commented about Gendered Intelligence pushing for trans young people as young as 12 to be given, and I'm quoting this part, sex hormones, surgeries, sex hormones and surgeries that leave them drug dependent and infertile for life. And obviously, there's a lot of misinformation in that comment, but I just wanted to talk about it because I feel like this is the kind of thing that like people do actually disagree on this stuff. So I'm going to start off with something my endocrinologist told me, because when I got to my endocrinologist, this is on my first appointment, you do a bit of a low-key interview thing, and he had obviously asked me at what point I had started puberty, like feminine puberty, and I told him that, like, honestly, I had probably started puberty at around 10 years old. I was, developing chest. I was, having a bleeding thing, and that was the thing that was happening to me when I was 10. And he said that, like, well, that's the point, you should have been able to get blockers. I didn't know I was trans at the time. So, like, there's nothing I could have done, even if I was able to get blockers at the time. There was nothing that I could have done for that because I didn't know. But, like, the point still stands. He's saying that you should be able to get blockers when you start puberty. And I agree with that. If you're starting puberty, you can get on blockers, and you should be able to get on blockers, especially since, and I think a lot of people don't realize this, you can go off blockers and your puberty will resume as normal. Blockers only work when you're on them. So if you stop taking hormone blockers, then it's not going to be blocked anymore, and they will just continue to do their thing and you will go through puberty. Granted, it might be later on than original, like, nature had intended kind of thing, but you will still go through puberty if that's what you decide to do. So I do think blockers should be a preventative thing, that they should prevent extreme change from occurring in puberty, because that can really affect a trans young person's mental health. Then when you talk about hormones, it gets more complicated, because of course it gets a bit more complicated when you talk about hormones, because there's obviously, like, there are risks associated with all sorts of things in medical transition. And the biggest thing about hormones is, my personal opinion is that people should be able to go on hormones when their peers of the gender they identify as are beginning to visually change and go through puberty. I know that when I started secondary school in first year, no one looked like they were in puberty. This was 4 years ago. No one looked like they were about to grow a mustache. No one was 10 foot tall. No one had a super deep voice. But then in second year, when I first started to realize that I was trans, that did happen. And at that point, I felt like it was at that point that I started to feel like it didn't fit in with guys my age. And it was at that point when I was about 14 that I should have been able to go on hormones. Because one of the biggest things for a lot of people's dysphoria is comparing themselves to other people of the gender they identify as. And if for another 2 years after that point I was dealing with the fact that other people's bodies were changing and mine wasn't. And that's the kind of thing, when the puberty of your peers begins is when you want your puberty to begin. And seeing as you have control over when puberty begins as a trans person, then you should be able to control it. You should be able to get that and be able to fit in short. Now, obviously, they were talking about surgery being available to 12-year-olds, which is total fucking bullshit. Because the earliest I've heard of someone getting surgery for trans related things is I know of a 16-year-old who's had top surgery. But number one, that's top surgery. Top surgery is not on the same invasive level as bottom surgery is, or a hysterectomy or anything like that. Like, hospitals in Ireland won't give you top surgery or a hysterectomy if you're under 18, which makes absolute sense. There are risks associated with both of those things that like just being an adult helps. Particularly with the hysterectomy. With top surgery, like granted that guy had his parents' consent, so it wasn't like he just ran off and did it himself. And assuming the surgeon is okay with giving someone surgery and they have parental consent and all that kind of jazz, like, it makes sense that they're able to get surgery. But at the same time, there definitely needs to be caution in regards to giving surgery to people under 18, because, like, you know, they are not necessarily fully developed bodies, and like, you may not be developed to the fullest of your extent, which can definitely, you know, cause risks. And plus, like, if you're under, like, definitely if you're under 16, and even if you are like 16, 17, like, you won't necessarily think of the risks in the same way that an adult was. Granted, you don't go to sleep 17, wake up 18, and suddenly have all of this wise fucking knowledge of the world. Like, that doesn't suddenly happen when you wake up and you're 18. But, like, there is a difference there, and you do need to be able to, like, maturely make the decision to have surgery. Granted, I've made the decision to have top surgery now. I don't see myself changing my mind about that, and I don't intend on having surgery until I'm almost 19. Just because that's when I have the time, effectively. But, like, I don't really think people should get surgery when they're under 18, especially considering the fact that, like, once you're 18, you're making the decision of your own accord. If you decide to have surgery and you're under 18, your parents are okay with it and the doctor's okay with it, but it turns out that you don't identify as trans and you want to detransition, you could potentially, and this is obviously a hypothetical situation, you could potentially sue both your parents and your doctor for giving you surgery as a minor, because you could argue that you were pressured into it, or that, like, they shouldn't have done it because you were a child. And, like, that is a thing that could happen. It sounds wild, but it could definitely happen if somebody under the age of 18 was given surgery and then went on to regret it. And you know what? They'd probably win because they were a minor at the time. That's the thing. Minors aren't able to make their own decisions legally. So, like, it makes sense as to why people do not get surgery when they are under 18. And, you know, that might be a controversial thing to say, that people shouldn't be able to get surgery when they're under 18, but it is what it is. And hopefully, I do hope that someday there are people who they know they're trans when they're young and they're able to get blockers so that they never go through the puberty that they were assigned at birth, per se, and that they go on hormones, and that, like, there's trans boys who never have to get top surgery. I hope there are trans boys who never have to get top surgery, that there are trans girls who that doesn't really equivalently translate. There are trans girls who don't feel like they have to my mind's gone blank. I can't think of an equivalent for the whole trans men not having to get top surgery thing, but ensure that there are trans young people who don't have to go through the same level of dysphoria and distress as trans young people their age have had to go through in the past. And I think that would be a lovely goal for the world to achieve. So yeah, thank you for watching. If you like this video, please click the like button down here. Subscribe button is over there, and the comment box is open below for all of your opinions and questions and comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.